Good morning, Rasmus. Looks like my daughter Maggie is also on this morning. Good morning. We'll sip our coffee and let a few more folks get on here. Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Mike. Let me know if my volume is good. Rasmus says, wake up, people. It's coffee time. Yes, sir, it is. Morning, Jeff. Is my volume okay, guys? Got about 9 people on this morning. Good morning. Make sure you, Rasmus says 5 by 5. Make sure you like, share, comment here before we get started. We got a pretty good show this morning. Bob is on, good morning, and Brett is on. Guys, great. We're going to get started. Got a lot to cover, man, and I'm going to try to be very respectful of your time because the stuff we're going to talk about today, if you're not interested in talking about COVID-19 preparation and protocols, then this is not the show for you. I'll let you bounce out right now, but I will tell you, you might want to stick around. We're going to talk about some good stuff. So hello and welcome to Coffee with Rich. My name is Rich Brown. I'm the co-host of the American Warrior Show, co-founder of the American Warrior Society, regional manager for disaster preparedness for the Red Cross, former government operations guy, and all this other stuff. 23 years in the Marine Corps, former cop, et cetera, et cetera. Guys, want to check out the bio, go to AmericanWarriorSociety.com. I'm not going to bore you. But I want to talk to you. This is a little bit of a special show. We're going to talk about COVID-19, what it is, what it isn't. Go into a little bit of details. I'm not a virologist. I have a degree in social psychology. I'm lucky to have that. But I'm trying to develop some good protocols because this stuff is pretty interesting. So got a little swag going on. We'll get some house cleaning out of the way. Yes, I'm using my American Warrior Society coffee cup my lovely bride got me this year. It says the fight's coming, be ready. And that fight isn't always just an armed, violent felon. It is also potentially any threat to your health and safety. So that's why we're going to talk about the virus this morning. We're not panicking about the virus, guys. We're just being prepared, taking some cautions. Learning a little bit, arming ourselves with knowledge now will go a long way, I think, in the future. So like, share, comment. We've got 28 folks this morning. Happy that you guys are on with me this morning. As always, we're going to talk about an article you need to read, a show you need to listen to, and then we're going to get into a gadget. And I got my desk is full of gadget this morning. So let's see who's on here before I go any further. Looks like I'm having the same computer problem this morning. I can see people joining over here, but I can't see it, so I'm going to have to touch the screen here. Rich says, thanks to those who shared this. No notification on Facebook about the live stream. That stinks. Dr. Eden is on. Good morning, sir. My brother Jeff is on. Eddie is on. Gilly says, hi, Rich. Hi, everybody. We're having a Costco run on water and toilet paper every day. I'm missing something. You might be. So let's talk about it. The article I want you to check out today, we've got 35 live viewers on. Thank you for the 35 that are on here. Again, we're going to talk about the virus and some other things, but the article that you probably want to check out is, we did an article, well, I should say we didn't do it. Bill Lewitt did it. He's a nurse practitioner, RN, and a whole host of other things. He wrote 7 key trauma management tips and tools for the armed individual. Amazing article. He goes over 7 real quick things. I'll go over them with you real quick. IFAC, individual first aid kit. If you don't have one, you need to have one. You need to have a robust one in your home, and you need to have probably one in all your vehicles. You can buy some amazing IFAC kits online. The danger with that is if you don't put it together, you just buy it and you stow it away and you think you got everything. And you probably do have everything, but you don't know how to use it or why it's there for. So I encourage you to build your own. I think that's a really good way to do it. Talks about tourniquets and the tourniquet renaissance. You know, when I first joined the Marine Corps back in 1989, tourniquets were kind of a last resort. They were really leery of teaching them to us, but now we've seen that tourniquets are freaking awesome, man. They save lives. Paul Liley was on yesterday. Paul is a police officer up in Ohio. 6 tourniquets saved so far in his life. He saved 6 people's lives with tourniquets. 2 in 1 week. So again, make sure you have tourniquets. Hemostatic agents. When they first came out, there was a lot of problems with these hemostatic agents. They were, the Quick Clot and the Celox and some of those other products. They were getting the temperature up to around 200 degrees in order to cauterize the wound, and they were causing some horrific burns on people. They've got all that solved now. So make sure you have plenty of hemostatic agents, because you can't tourniquet your neck, right? You can't tourniquet the torso. Chest seals. Chest seals are critical for preventing, what's it called? Tension pneumothorax, I believe it's called. The sucking chest wounds. So you need a chest seal. That's the only thing that's going to do that. Up to 49 live years, 50. That's amazing. Really cool. So chest seals are very important. He talks about nasal airways and why those are important. He talks about going beyond the IFAC kit. And then finally he finishes up with training. So if you want to check out that article, it's right here in the thread for you. Just go to the top and you can learn everything you need. Matter of fact, all the research I'm doing for the COVID virus, I've put in today's thing, so you can click the links and learn more about everything that we're talking about. Finally, show number 211, our most recent show, is the show I'm going to encourage you to check out. Show number 211 is where we do a little bit of disaster preparedness and the coronavirus updates. We talk about my recent trips and traveling abroad and all this kind of stuff, how to keep yourself safer doing that. Check out show 211. We're probably going to do another coronavirus preparedness episode very soon. I'm putting together some notes and an article for it on what we as armed individuals can do, or just anybody can do, what your grandma can do. And it's going to be really important for grandmas, as I'm going to share with you here in a little bit. So please like and share. Let's take a look at the comments here. Wade says, good morning, Rich, and everyone else. My lovely bride says, good morning. Ian, stay safe there in Nashville, brother. I see you. Nathan is, Nebraska. Good morning, sir. Sammy Day, good morning, sir. Dan says, good bourbon combats the beer virus. Funny. Morning, sir. We've got a lot of folks on this morning. Gadgets, love gadgets. Okay, here we go. All right, here, let's talk a little bit about, let me pull up some of my notes here, where we get this name of the disease. And I'm as I'm grappling with all this information, I'm trying to figure out when they talk about SARS-CoV-2, or they talk about the coronavirus or COVID, what's the difference in those three? Well, they're all the same thing. So there's some nomenclature issues that you probably need to be aware of. The World Health Organization and the International Committee on Taxonomy have settled on the disease, naming the disease. It's called the coronavirus disease. It's abbreviated as COVID-19. Now, that's the disease. The actual virus is, I'm going to read this to you, Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus 2. And it is abbreviated as SARS-CoV-2. So it's the same freaking thing. You'll hear them say SARS-CoV-2. You'll hear them say coronavirus. You'll hear them say COVID-19. They're basically talking about the same thing. Now, in one sense, they're talking about the virus. In one sense, they're talking about the disease caused by the virus. But anytime you hear those things, you may want to cue in and hear what's going on. Now, how did it all start? Well, as you may remember, it started back in December the 29th of 2019. Some folks in Wuhan noticed that Wuhan in China, that there was a cluster of people with pneumonia coming in, very similar symptoms. And as they ran it to ground, they figured out that, guess what? We're dealing with something we haven't seen before. And it was later named, like I said, SARS-CoV-2. The interesting thing about Wuhan is, so I live in the state of Tennessee. We got about 6 million-ish people. Wuhan, this one city in China, has over 11 million people. That's twice the state of Tennessee in one city in China. And they've been grappling to get it contained. So the coronavirus, as you're probably familiar, is a group of viruses that account for about 30% of the common cold. We've seen outbreaks of this before. We had SARS in 2003 and MERS in 2012. And those deaths were, I think in SARS, according to the World Health Organization, 2003 resulted in around 1,000 deaths, and MERS resulted in 862. So when we're talking about deaths, one of the things that you'll see is something called the case fatality rate. Now, the case fatality rate isn't necessarily one size fits all because it's broken out by demographics of people and even in different countries that people live in. If you live in a country where there's not good health infrastructure, the case fatality rate will probably be higher than in a developed country. So, but if we just lump it all together and say, Rich, I hear you, but give me a case fatality rate. Well, according to the World Health Organization, as of last night, the overall mortality was 3.44%. But then you got to break that out a little bit. You got to dig into that data a little bit more. The elderly are running about 15% mortality, 15%. 15% of the elderly folks that get it, and the elderly is defined as over 70 years old for the data that I saw, it's fatal. The good thing, if there is a good thing to this horrible virus, is that children seem to be spared. There is yet to be any child under the age of 10 that's died of the coronavirus. They may have gotten it, but they recovered. So there's something about it that's making it much more lethal to the elderly population, to the children. And that's interesting because that's a complete flip-flop of the Spanish flu of 1918. And what's interesting about the Spanish flu of 1918, I read somewhere that the reason it was called the Spanish flu was all the other nations had their propaganda in place and they had really locked down information so that the only country that was putting out information about the influenza was Spain, because Spain had been neutral during World War I. So they got freedom of the press and they're letting it roll and people are telling the truth, and so it looked like, oh, it's just a Spanish problem. It wasn't a Spanish problem. Over 600,000 Americans died in that influenza outbreak. So we're going to talk about some things that we can do to protect ourselves. And I'm going to give you a quick, like I said, I got a lot of gadgets here, a quick little rundown of how you can do it. And then we're going to talk about some protocols once we kind of get the list out of the way. So the number one thing you probably need, and you may have read this already, is a thermometer. Now, there are many varieties of thermometers out there. You choose one. I don't know that one is any better than the other. Now, why the thermometer? Why is the thermometer important? Because 99% of the patients, of the people infected, and last night there was over 97,000, almost 98,000, the first thing they do is run a fever. 99% of the things they do is run a fever. The next thing they experience, about 50% of them experience a dry cough. And then finally, 33% have muscle pain and fatigue and difficulty breathing. So, as you can see, now that leaves about 1% of them are asymptomatic. They run you can't tell anything's wrong with them, and they're running around potentially spreading the disease because they feel fine. And that's like, Typhoid Mary. Read about her. This was an asymptomatic person with typhoid. And they locked her down for, I think, 3 years and wouldn't let her out because she'd been working in restaurants, I think, up in New York City and hospitals and stuff like that, infecting lots of people. And they finally tracked her down. They locked her down for 3 years. They finally let her out. She promises she'll never go to work in a restaurant again. Guess what Typhoid Mary does? She goes back to work in a restaurant, and they end up having to, I think, pretty much put her on house arrest for the last 20 years of her life. So some people are going to be asymptomatic, and they're going to infect other people. That's just the bottom line. So get a thermometer, know how to use it. Next thing, man, real simple, soap. And it doesn't necessarily have to be antibacterial. Any soap. What's critical here is washing with warm or hot water for about 20 seconds. How long is 20 seconds? You can sing happy birthday to yourself twice in about 20 to 25 seconds. So that's kind of what I've been doing. Happy birthday to me, and I'll wash it. I'll sing through it twice, and that's about 20, 25 seconds worth of washing with soap. Dry your hands off real good, and you should be all right. The next thing you're going to want is hand sanitizer. Come in different varieties. A big one for the house and for your desk, and maybe a small one for your pocket. These are going to be huge. Coming up, we're going to talk about some protocols, but right now we're just talking about the gadget. Thanks to the 56 folks that are joining me. This is a special coffee with Rich, man. We're talking about SARS-CoV-2. We're talking about COVID-19. We're talking about the coronavirus, because they're all the same freaking thing. In grappling with the information that's out there, I'm having to piece this together, the information, because some sites are woefully inadequate, like the CDC. Got some interesting information, but it's not the complete picture. We'll get more into the complete picture later. I put some links to some really interesting podcasts. One of them is information coming out of Capital Economics. They're talking about the potential economic impact of this. And that really should concern you as much or more than getting sick, is the supply chain disruption. So thanks for the 60 folks that are joining me. I really appreciate it. We're going to keep rolling. So we talked about washing your hands, and we'll talk about those protocols a little bit more here in just a second. So hand sanitizer, the key you're looking for here is 60% or greater of isopropyl alcohol or ethyl alcohol. Now, since we're talking about that, this right here is probably what you find on your grocery store shelves. And this isopropyl alcohol, the problem is it's 50% isopropyl alcohol and 50% water. And that's not necessarily good. I didn't really think about that until I bought it. I just bought the alcohol and got out of the store. But in truth, it really, to have the disinfecting power you need, it needs to be about 62% to 70% or greater of the content. Now, the interesting thing is you can put that in a spray bottle. I wouldn't dilute this. I would pour it straight in because it is a 50-50. And I know that I'm going to have to hose down everything to really get the effect. So, and again, what are you disinfecting? Well, you got to disinfect everything. Thermometers, you got to disinfect those. If you think you got a level with running a temperature or they're not feeling well, you want to check them out. Don't necessarily run to the hospital if you're feeling a little bit under weather. All you're going to do is overwhelm the hospital. So we have to kind of be chill about that. We talked about alcohol. We talked about bleach here before. Bleach is your friend, man, but bleach has a shelf life of its usefulness. So as you can see, as I get the bleach in, I mark it with the date that it came in, because it really, effectiveness is only good for about 4 months if you're disinfecting water, maybe about 6 months for everything else. It breaks down if you get it in hot places or you get it around sunlight. So keep it in kind of a room temperature area. In bleach, of course, is sodium hypochlorite. What are you looking for there? Well, I'm not going to say any bleach will do. There's a lot for that. I put a link in here to the EPA. They tell you the types of bleaches you can use and how to use them. So again, check out the EPA's link on that I've put in the notes today. Before I go any further, let's see who's on here. Brian is on. We've got 64 folks joining us. Good morning, Brian. Don't touch your face is a good one. Yeah, we're going to talk more about that. Gilly's talking about best practices. My old buddy Greg, Reconnaissance Marine, is on this morning. Good morning, sir. Adam is on. Good morning. So we just talked about bleach. Let's talk about, I guess now is as good a time as any, face masks. You either had them or you don't. I mean, right now they're kind of out right now. Face masks, the stuff I'm reading is these are really only good to keep me from infecting somebody else. They're not really good for my own preventive measures. For that, you're going to need an N95 mask. And this is something I've been grappling with. And if anybody has the answer, send it to rich@AmericanWarriorSociety.com, man. I went down the rabbit hole and still couldn't solve one of these problems. And so the 95, the number that you're seeing after these masks, it's just a percentage of particulates that they can filter out. So an N95 mask means that it can filter out nuisance particles up to 95% of the time. Let's say like a P100 or an N100, your means it's going to filter out about 99.7% of the particles, not necessarily 100%. But what about when you see a P95 mask, like these respirators you can buy at Lowe's? That means it can filter out oily particles. So does a P95 mask work as good as an N95 mask? Yeah, good luck finding the answer to that one, because everything keeps talking about N95. Well, my thought is if it can filter out oily particulates as well as nuisance particulates to 95%, then probably one of those respirators like you have to spray paint a car or something may work. I don't know. Like I said, I'm grappling for that answer. Can't seem to find it anywhere. If you know where the answer is, send it to me. Again, Gordon says just wash your hands. Okay. Roger that. Appreciate that, Gordon. We're going to talk about a little bit more than that. Some other protocols, but that is a sound one like we talked about a second ago. 20 seconds or more hot water and soap, and you probably should be good to go with that. We're going to talk about more protocols than that. Disinfectant wipes. Come in different varieties, man. if you look at the EPA link that I sent you, it talks about Lysol disinfecting wipes and that they're good to go. But it doesn't necessarily talk about good and clean wipes. So what I did was I looked at the active ingredients on here that the EPA is recommending, and guess what? This little cheap brand meets or exceeds the disinfecting stuff that's in these. So again, keep this at home, keep this in the truck, and you're going to be good to go. Hydrogen peroxide, man. Hydrogen peroxide has amazing uses, and this stuff is dead cheap. You can pick this up at the dollar store probably. While everybody's freaking out with bleach and alcohol, this might be a really good one to get. Some of the uses for this stuff, you know, some people say, well, let's start kind of at the beginning here, because there's 22 uses for hydrogen peroxide, and we'll talk about a few of them here. Maybe as effective as bleach for what we're doing here. And then interesting thing is this is 3% hydrogen peroxide. Now, according to the things that I'm seeing online, what you need is something equal to or greater than 0.5%. So this is way stronger than that. You can clean your dishwasher with this. You know, a lot of viruses and fungus and bacteria hang out in the dishwasher. Clean your dishwasher. You can scrub your sink with this. Disinfect cutting boards with this. You can clean garbage cans with this. Deep clean your toilet with this. Foam away soap scum with this. Remove stains with this. Phenomenal uses. Buy some now. Keep it, again, just like you do your bleach, in a dry place with not a lot of sunlight, because it will break down. That's what's in the dark bottle. And you'll probably be good to go. Good stuff. And again, you can find the links to the 22 things you can do with hydrogen peroxide at the top of this feed. Let's talk about water. Water. You need, we've talked about this before, 1 gallon of water per person per day, because they're going to consume about 3 quarts of water per day, and they're probably going to use another quart for sanitation requirements. So about 1 gallon of water per person per day. Some of the podcasts I've been listening to, they're talking to folks that have been on lockdown in Wuhan since late December, early January. This one girl that they spoke to, you know, she's like, yeah, I'm at home hanging out, getting my work done at home. Yeah, I've been shut in since January. It hasn't been that bad. I've seen about 5 people. I put in an order online and they deliver it to my door, and I walk down and clean off everything, and they're going about their life, and that's what they have to do. And one podcast I listened to, they talked to this gentleman by the name of Carl, who was on the Pacific Princess, I think it is, where all the coronavirus hit real hard, and the State Department flew them all out, and he's in quarantine right now, I think in Nebraska. And so he had an interesting perspective on everything that's been going on. They're not letting him leave until the disease has run its course. So lots of interesting thing there. 1 gallon per person per day. Let's talk about gloves. Nitrate gloves. You probably want to get these, especially if somebody has a latex allergy in your home. You definitely don't want to use the latex kind. Another thing is you probably need more gloves than you think you do, because if you're taking care of a sick loved one at home, you're going to be using them. And you may want to, as any police officer, corrections officer will tell you, or a healthcare worker, you may want to use more than 2 gloves at a time. Or depending on what you're doing, you may want to put 1 or 2 pairs of nitrite gloves on, then maybe your mechanic's gloves on over that, depending on what you're doing. So gloves are interesting. Face masks, we talk about those. Let's see who was on here before I go much further. Let's see. Even more. Sadly, comments aren't updating for me, but at least coffee with a rich 5x5. Good morning, Australia. Wendy, good to see you. Dan says, if you tear them apart, you'll find charcoal or other additives in the other than P100. Yeah. Gilly said, I had a talk with my law in Los Angeles. Would you believe it's hard to find drinking water in grocery stores? Yeah, man. A lot of this prep you probably maybe should have been doing a while ago. And if you're running out to try to do it now, good luck finding some of this stuff. Face masks, we talked about that. The problem with face masks, the reason, now South Korea said we're going to get face masks for every single person. In America, the CDC is still saying, you don't need them. Don't worry about it. Don't get them. Healthcare workers need them more than you do. And I agree with that. They probably do. However, I think some simple protocols. The other thing is, just because you have a face mask may lead to a false sense of security, because you touch the outside of the face mask, guess what you just did? Now you've got it on you, and I think that unless you really understand how to use them and what the proper PPE protocols are for a face mask, you may just do more harm than good to your own self, and I hate to say that. Some bits and pieces here. Disinfecting sprays are good, but like we talked about a second ago, you can take alcohol or bleach solution, 1 cup of bleach, a gallon of water, mix it, put it in your sprayer, and now you got a disinfectant spray. Or you can use the commercial variety. This came out of Walmart. You want to have some cold medicines on hand, Not a whole lot, don't go crazy, but some basic cold medicines so that you and your family are prepared. Like I said, these folks are going to be running a fever, dry cough, etc. A little bit of relief goes a long way. I could go through all the other stuff, batteries, you're probably going to need batteries. They're always a good thing to have, and if you get the kind that lasts a long time, you'll just cycle in and cycle out the batteries. Let's look at some Red Cross advice, because again, your old pal Rich Brown used to manage the entire state of Tennessee for disaster preparedness, and this is things that we talk about all the time, but I think it's pretty interesting. Avoid close contact with folks who are sick. I got an email this morning from a real close friend of mine who's a colonel in the military, and he's stationed in Europe, and he says, let me tell you, man, all the top folks are working on this. They're really leaning forward into this virus stuff, and just trust me when I say they're on it. So I trust him. Stay at home when you're sick, man. If you're sick, they don't need you at work. You're just going to infect more people. And in a podcast we're going to do coming up real soon, we're going to talk about doubling rates and why you need to understand that. Cover your nose and mouth. If you got a little cough in the morning like your old pal Rich Brown does, got to cover your mouth, man, and then throw these things away when you're done with them. If you don't have something nearby like that, then like this. When we talk about try to limit your contact, the reason is if you cough or sneeze, those little droplets that go out, they're going to go out to about 3 to 6 feet, maybe beyond. And if they get on you, they could potentially infect you. You cough into your elbow instead of your hands. Definitely don't just cough out into the air. Wash your hands often. We talked about 20 seconds. Wash them with warm soap and water, especially after going to the bathroom, before eating, after blowing your nose, after sneezing. If soap and water aren't available, obviously you use the hand sanitizer products, but I don't think they're probably as good as just good old-fashioned soap and water. Avoid touching your eyes and your mouth and all this other stuff. Another thing I'll tell you is this beard, man, probably a virus hand grenade I'm carrying around on my face. So if you see me shaved here in the next month or so, you'll know why. It won't be a good thing. I'll be crying about it. Practice good habits, get plenty of sleep, still keep working out. Being physically active is good. It builds up your immune system, so keep doing that. Manage stress and drink plenty of fluids. Just sound advice. Let's see who says have plenty of moonshine. Donald says have plenty of moonshine. Good medicine. Couldn't hurt. Cover your sleeve, not your hands. Okay. That's what Grandma says. Disinfect cupboards, knobs, anywhere where people's hands touch. Your cell phone is a disgusting thing. I'm sure you could check out how disgusting that thing is. Anywhere where people touch, you're going to need to clean those in often. And again, making a solution, spraying it down, wiping it down, throwing the stuff away is probably a good thing. Your computers, toys, etc. I'm going to say the American Red Cross says follow the CDC's guidance when it comes to face masks. And their guidance says you don't really need them. Healthcare workers need them. So there you go. You can follow that guidance. Other countries are giving different guidance, and that's cool. But if you're gonna wear one or you're gonna try to purchase one, you need to understand the safety protocols that go along with that level of PPE. Face masks should be used by people who are ill to keep from getting other people sick. That's what we talked about a second ago with those little disposable masks. Let's talk about getting your household ready. So that's kind of some little hygiene things you can do, but how about getting your household ready? they're really the same thing as we talk about when we talk about basic disaster preparedness or overall preparedness. Eric says, "Oh yeah, I'm always wiping my cell with Lysol wipes like it were a murder weapon." That's good. So have a supply of staple food supplies, diapers if you have small children. And if you have small children, and like a lot of countries, they've been canceling school, they've been canceling other events. Heck, my son was supposed to fly out to a cybersecurity conference. They just canceled that. We were going to go to the Irish Festival. We just decided not to go to that. I mean, there's no sense in getting around those people that are going to want to touch, because we take our Irish Wolfhound, it's an event. People are going to want to touch the dog, and they've never seen a dog that big. The dog's going to get sick, which is interesting because the CDC says there's no evidence that it transmits to animals. But if you have the virus, don't let your pets get near them. Healthcare workers keep the pets, especially dogs, away from the sick person, which I think is pretty interesting. So having a 30-day supply of the staples of food is probably a good thing. Prescription medicines are a plus. If you rely on prescription medication, man, you're going to have some of that around. If you got animals and pets, you're going to need extra water for them. You're going to need extra food for them. So, man, it's make sure you do that. And just the basic stuff: pain relievers, Imodium AD to stop diarrhea, antidiarrheal medicine, stuff like that. Stuff for the common colds and flus is probably a good idea. Learn what the protocols are for the local school board. What are they going to do as it continues? Because yesterday we have our first corona case here in the state of Tennessee. So, what is the school's plan? I don't know yet. Need to find out. But I don't have kids in school anymore. But I know a lot of people that's watching this morning do. If you care for older adults in your home, like we moved my mother in, who has dementia and Alzheimer's and stuff. And like I told you a little while ago, the mortality rate, the case fatality rate for the COVID-19 for the elderly is running about 15%. So if you have elderly folks at home, even if they're not getting out of the house, there's a potential for them to get infected because you brought it into the house. So what's your plan to care for them? So make sure you think about that. Couple final things, and I'll let you get on with your day. I know I've kept you on here for about 34 minutes. According to the CDC, I'm going to read this here. Patients with COVID-19 have reportedly had mild to severe respiratory illness. Symptoms may appear 2 to 14 days after exposure and include fever, cough, and shortness of breath. Like I told you at the beginning, 99% of the folks run a fever, 50% get a dry cough, about 33% are getting some really significant difficulty breathing, muscle soreness, aches and pains, etc. So if you're exhibiting those, like I said, the number one thing you probably need to make sure you have is a thermometer. Most of us have that. So any questions for me? If not, man, that's kind of it. I'm just going to wrap it up right there. I talked about preparing for it. Like I said, we did one show on the coronavirus, which is also called SARS-CoV-2, COVID, etc. Now, like I said, one is the disease and one is the actual virus, but really you can think of it collectively if you like. The disease is called the coronavirus disease. The virus is called severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2. Ryan says, can you speak to air filters for central systems as well as portable units? I've been thinking a lot about that one, man, and I'll put that down and we'll discuss that in an upcoming podcast because that has been on my mind. I've done a little bit of research on that and still a little hokey on that one. And some of these, like I said, if I can't get you the answer right now, if I don't know it, then I will definitely have to do some research and we'll talk about it later. Nathan says, new to AWS and thanks for the info. Yeah, man, thank you. And if you want to check out all the stuff, the bibliography kind of for this morning, I've put in the notes here so you can always have access to that. Let's see. Can we help shave your beard? No, you cannot. See any other comments on here? I keep thinking of martial law top scenarios. I hope we don't get to that, but Brett says we canceled a flight to DC to visit our daughter. They pet the dog, you pet the dog, and you get it. Yeah, I mean, so here's the deal. Flybe, I don't know if you saw this, Flybe declared bankruptcy yesterday because people aren't flying in Europe. I've flown Flybe before. It was a great airline, but these kind of disruptions have these second order effects that we can't necessarily predict right now. China is one of the things that I would encourage you to check out is Capital Economy website, and they have an entire thing. They're tracking what's going on in China. They're tracking the amount of people on the roads. They're tracking the amount of people that fly in China. China's saying that's fine. We're going to be able to handle the supply. But if it's half the amount of people are flying around the country, half of the roads are getting driven on right now in China, that's telling me that there will be a supply chain disruption because only half of the people are going to work right now. So check out Capital Economy coronavirus updates and what it could potentially do to our supply chain. Leave it at that. Anybody have any questions for me before I let you get on with your day? Let's see. Shave party. Not happening, pal. Gordon says, let's see, CDC says shave your beard. I'm sure they probably do, and at some point I may have to, but right now I can't do it. Thing we forget, presented by Captain Obvious, Rich Brown. Thanks for the info, Rich, man. Hey, yeah, it's funny, man. I'm talking to people, and they're like, the flu? Oh, I'm not worried about that. Well, the flu normally follows these seasonal sine waves. This is not going to follow a seasonal sine wave. So think about that. It's going to be here for a while, and like I said, we'll talk more in the weeds when we do another podcast on this coming up. So to wrap it up here, check out AmericanWarriorSociety.com. We don't have a whole lot of COVID stuff on there right now, but we do have a podcast 211 that you can check out. We do have some disaster preparedness things you can check out, and this will help you prepare for outbreaks like what we're seeing now. Check out the Training Vault, man. Check out the store. The Training Vault is where we keep all the premium content. You got to be a member to do that. We got some swag for you, things like the shirt. Check that out and support the brand. Other than that, anybody got any questions or comments for me? If not, I'll let you go. Let's see here. Great show as always. John says, new to the group, very interesting things around the world. Yeah, man. Thank you. Thank you for being on. Rasmus says, great show as always. Jeff says, what I have seen is the only threat of death is to the elderly and those with weak immune systems. Your opinion? That may be an interesting way of thinking about it. Jeff, I don't necessarily disagree with you. The elderly, which like I said at the beginning of the show, it's kind of different than the way it was with the Spanish influenza of 1918 because it was killing the young and sparing the elderly. This recent iteration, COVID-19, is doing the exact opposite. No one under the age of 10 has passed away yet. 15% case fatality rate for the elderly. So there's something about being elderly. They don't even understand it yet as to why it's being lethal to those folks. But the problem is these things mutate, right? It mutated from probably a bat to this other animal, then to us in relatively quick order. So it can mutate again. It can mutate to a weaker strain. It could mutate to a more lethal strain. And right now, I saw some interesting stuff about this yesterday. These RNA type of viruses, not necessarily DNA viruses, these are RNA type of viruses. Right now, it's mutated already to an S and L version. There's an S version and an L version of this virus from what I was reading yesterday. We'll talk more about that maybe on another show, but one is definitely a much more lethal strain. So it's hard to say. I think there's maybe some wisdom in what you're saying, Jeff, but it also is a little bit more complicated than that. So anyway, stay tuned for more information. Gerald says thanks. Brett says thanks for the info. Eric says have a good day, Rich. Gordon says yes, it is seasonal like flu. Okay, Gordon, maybe you work for the CDC. I don't know, Gordon. So with all the quarantines, expect a baby boom. Yeah, that's interesting. Brian says, if I have to shave mine, I'll need to shelter in place for a month just because of the new look. Yeah, same here, man. I'm not looking forward to that. Jeff says, all it takes is slight morph to the virus and it's more deadly. Yeah. Gilly says, guys, stay safe. Rich, thank you for the information topic. Take care. Yeah, let's see. Lisa says, can you address Gordon's comments, your opinion? I think we just talked about that. Here's the thing. Arm yourself with information. We talked about this yesterday when I did the Coffee with Rich Overshooting Performance Facebook page. You can be armed with weapon or tools. You can be armed with knowledge. And arm yourself with knowledge, man. There's a lot of disinformation out there, which is why I spent hours yesterday putting together these show notes to have a respectful and responsible conversation with you guys, not to cause any panic or alarm, just to increase a little bit of level of preparedness and get a little bit of knowledge out there. So anyway, a lot of people saying, yeah, it's like the flu, you know, and actually somebody even said it's not as lethal as the flu. I don't know where they're getting that information, because that runs contrary to the CDC, World Health Organization, and a variety of other organizations around the world that study this. And the data that's coming out, you can track it. Johns Hopkins has an interactive dashboard where you can see all the latest information. So go and check that out. I believe the link to that is in the show notes today. But Johns Hopkins coronavirus, you can check out the world dashboard, and it shows you the earth and where all the cases are. It talks about fatality rates. It talks about all the information out there. So please check that out. Other than that, man, that's all I got. I kept you on here for almost 45 minutes. Sorry about going a little long this morning, but I knew with having the amount of gadgets we had, it was going to be quite a long show. So anyway, we'll see how this goes, man. Act responsibly out there. Arm yourself with knowledge and share what you find with others. Brian says, great job, Rich. I really appreciate the info. The insights, both firsthand as well as the info you gathered for us. Eric says, Rich, kind of feel like every year there's a different new pandemic. That's interesting you say that, Eric, because I don't. My son asked me recently, he says, Dad, you know, you're 50. You've probably seen these kind of things many times before, right? I'm like, not really. I mean, there was some stuff about H1N1. There was some stuff about Ebola that I was involved with the Red Cross. There was some stuff with SARS and MERS and stuff like that. They burnt themselves out pretty quickly. I think SARS caused, the first iteration of SARS in 2003 maybe caused 1,000 deaths. But again, that wasn't a blip on the radar. One of the things that is concerning about this is the doubling rate. And I'm not going to go into it right now. You can Google it if you want to. And I created a spreadsheet. You can too. Just off of the little bit of information you get from the World Health Organization, and they'll show you the algorithms and the equations. Build a spreadsheet yourself. Do the math. I don't want to be alarmist. I'm not going to share it with you right now, but you can do that yourself. So check it out. Elkie says, sorry I'm late, but sharing. Yeah, okay, check that out, guys. Gilly says, it's a great topic. It's good to extend. Wendy says, thank you. Good night from Perth, Australia. Wendy, you guys be safe over there, man. I'm going to let you go. Thanks for the folks that joined me this morning. Eric, you're absolutely right. It is so hard to get to the bottom. I shared my frustration last night with my wife of why am I having to, I'll give you a case in point. On most of the places that they recommend, even in the EPA link that they put out yesterday, the EPA did this long link of all the kind of stuff that will kill coronavirus. And it talks about ethyl alcohol. It doesn't necessarily talk about this kind of alcohol. And I'm like, okay, well, is this kind of alcohol effective? Because trying to find ethyl alcohol is a bit challenging. And it is. I had to read some studies and some abstracts of cases where healthcare workers were using this relative to ethyl alcohol and cleaning their stethoscopes and stuff. And I had to dig down through Petri dishes and all this other stuff to learn that this is just as effective. So why am I having to dig as hard and work as hard for the information? So again, I wanted to make sure that I kind of gave you guys the best information I could with about a day to chew through the data. I'm gonna keep working on it. There's some great resources out there. Please check those out. Let's see what else we got here. Elkie says it's a link. The link that he provided above is a link from the Swiss Health Authority because lots of us distrust American media and resources. And why should we trust them? Because the last pandemic, 1918, well, there were actually other pandemics along the way. I think one in 1957 and maybe one in 1968. But anyway, the big pandemic, the 1918 one, they didn't tell anybody about. They didn't want you to know about it. The reason it's called the Spanish flu I mentioned earlier is because only Spain was letting out information. And yet about 647,000 Americans died of this Spanish influenza in 1918. So again, arm yourself with facts, read the literature out there, If your friend says they're not worried about it, okay, that's cool. Read the information for yourself. Check out the links I provided you above. And if you can do a little bit of preparedness now, maybe it'll protect you and your family for the longer run. Anyway, that's all I got, man. Let's see. Lots of folks talking. Hey, man, thanks for your time this morning. Be safe out there. Remember, the fight is coming. Be ready.